Dear SIGNIS Asia friends, greetings from Myanmar, Minglava, Annyeonghaseyo. It gives me immense pleasure to be with you all. I am glad that Korean Church and the SIGNIS is organizing this seminar of huge relevance to the world today. We in Myanmar are grateful to Korea for many interventions. The generosity to Myanmar people, your companies employing hundreds, the vibrant Korean Catholic community in Myanmar, which is the model of hard work, generous support to the poor. Korean soft power has pervaded our culture for decades. Your serious, your pop groups, and your culture, your food, including kimchi, have won the hearts of our people. Bridges are already built with the people. It gives me immense pleasure to be with you all. I am also indebted to the fellowship of the Korean Church in our recent events in Myanmar through their protest, their liturgy, and their generosity. I am thankful to His Eminence, Andrew Cardinal Yom So-jun, and all the bishops. I was given the topic network pandemic. I shall modify that into fighting the virus of indifference with a compassionate communication. Of course, the words are inspired by Pope Francis' observation on the COVID and the emerging inequalities and the culture of indifference. I am not an expert on social media, but I have seen the enormous good and the evil social media could do. Aligning with the main theme, bridging over the pandemic, I shall indicate later the need to develop a cohesive narrative as that bridge. Crisis need not always lead to a tragedy, but to new opportunity. My brief task is to show to how networking can bring enormous good, especially to the poor. That needs a new cohesive narrative focused on the least and the lost in the global economy and the scorching pandemic. The pandemic has stripped open the social inequalities and the social economic pandemic of poverty, lack of health care. A new normal itself becomes contested because many of the poor never had any normal cautioning us against any casual use of language. This is the communications era, and all of pervading social media has brought together the human family. The enormous power of the social media can never be understood. It has a capacity to connect millions of people. As Catholics, we need to see how greater good for the greater number of people can be done through network. Not only the internet connects us, the invisible virus COVID-19 has united us in fear, anxiety, and human suffering. As we have witnessed what is happening in countries like India, an existential threat seems to be attacking humanity. In the words of Pope Francis, we are all together in this. We feel the acute sense of interconnectedness, not only digitally, but by the threat of virus and the infection. COVID, the scientists have warned us, is just a window shopping of the impending dangers that are waiting to happen to the human family because of the wanton destruction of nature and man-made disaster of global warming. The message is clear. Either we stand together, bridging all our efforts, or we sink together. The future of humanity is based on our common efforts. Pope Francis has warned us that efforts to prepare the new world may be late. The new world with all its challenges have already arrived. Networking too faces many challenges and opportunities. I urge the organizers to see social media as a great opportunity for good. Let me enumerate some of the challenges a Catholic organization like SIGNIS faces. Union of hearts and minds. Technology can play a role, but as Christians, we need to sound a caution. Long ago, President Bill Clinton made an observation. Internet can connect the computers, but it cannot connect the hearts. Humanity will survive by setting the economy and the technology at the service of humanity. It is about union of hearts and minds and not phones. Digital slavery. The gadgets are alluring. As social scientists have warned us, that technology is fast making us digital slaves, addicting us to mutilating narcissism and hatred and fear of the other, leading many to a culture of indifference to human suffering. We are not extension of the gadgets. Gadgets must be at the service of us. It is about people. No more machines, but deep encounters. Human life is about encounters. A true media tells the stories of the people. A Catholic communication starts with the relationship. Affirming our life is based on the relationships. Pope Francis has brought out three kinds of relationships as articulated in his recent documents. With God, Evangelii Gaudium. With the creation, Laudato Si. With one another, Fratelli Tutti. As the pandemic rages, the collapse of these triple relationships provoked the pandemic of indifference. The pandemic has not only infected human beings, it has infected the way humans communicate. The apocalyptic scenes in India and other places portray how communications were manipulated to meet political needs, infected with false narratives built on dangerous priorities. The response of some of the Asian countries, like Korea, provide an example how good communication can deter the virus spike. We had developing a cohesive narratives as the bridge across culture. One is medium versus message. SIGNIS is established to communicate. Is media the message, as Marshall McLuhan said? I tend to disagree. Medium is not the message. Yes, there are great gadgets, Social media is a great tool, but only a tool. Pope Francis uses the media often, but his messages are so deep, so relevant, and simple. In every communication, he conveys deep compassion, always targeting the vulnerable. SIGNIS Asia as a church organization follows such an approach. What is the bridge we build through this pandemic? There is a huge pandemic-provoked human suffering. It has brought out the hidden inequalities. Humanity is broken further into haves and have-not. A culture of indifference has grown. Social media is powerful only when the message is powerful. The apostles in the early church had a great message, but no media. Now we have the support of a worldwide reach. What is the message? It is a great opportunity to build compassion as a bridge across cultures and countries. Pope Francis is a glorious example of this approach. 2. Mainstream versus the reality. The dominant message after the eruption of the pandemic seemed to have forgotten the lives of the poor. The prevention protocols are good. In many Asian countries, they fail to take into consideration the life of the poor. Social distancing is a great idea. And how does a slum dweller with a single room and crowded slums in many Asian cities observe social distancing? Washing hands presumes running water. Lockdowns presume saving in families. Pandemic has pushed nearly 122 million poor into starvation. The continued use of such language resulted in conditions like India, which threatens to spread to other countries. There are no answers, but at least they give us how a new society needs to be planned for the future. Pope Francis and others have come out with an idea of universal basic income. Pope Francis also has pointed out the cruelty of continued investment in arms, weapons, when the poor countries would not provide a free vaccine to the poor. Pope calls for a new imagination of a future development. I quote, "Today frontiers fall and our fragility is exposed. The Spirit challenges us. This presence is the breath of the Spirit that opens horizons, sparks creativity, and renews brotherhood, and makes us say, I am present in the face of the enormous and urgent task that awaits us. This is the time for a new imagination of what is possible. Preparing not a future, but preparing a new future." 1. Balanced view of vulnerability and invisibility. An invisible virus has shattered the invisibility of human achievements and exposed our vulnerabilities. The mainstream narrative is one of fear and anxiety. Loneliness is the lurking danger. It is our sense of vulnerability that opens the Christian eyes and see that without the other, my existence becomes fragile. Social distancing needs not distance our hearts. Acknowledging the collective fragility, I cannot be healthy unless every other person is healthy. From self-centeredness towards social solidarity. 2. Understanding social economic pandemics. Rich and the poor do not face a pandemic on an equal platform. Poverty is a pestering pandemic. Catholic social teaching urges us to creatively visualize a better world, learning from the past and the present. Looking forward requires targeted engagement aimed at promoting health, critical rethinking of human progress, a renewed solidarity accompanied by social reforms, and a sustainable future. 3. Pastoral accompaniment by portals. COVID has forced on us a long Holy Saturday, silence of the churches, reduced pastoral presence, dilution of the community, great challenges to Catholics. While other Christians have used the media with great benefit, even doing better during COVID, Catholic Church in many parts of the world struggles hard to use the new media. SIGNIS need to work out pastoral and psychosocial portals that will benefit our people during this long, prolonged Holy Saturday. COVID is a great disruption of all human activity. Disruptions are not always bad. Many of them could bring deep reflection and effect changes. All these events need to be retold through the eyes of faith. Pandemic is not new to Christians. The Bible has many great pandemics. Middle Ages saw great challenges to church. Amidst all those sufferings, lessons were learned. The church and the society moved on. We shall overcome this challenge too. It was Jesus, through his incarnation, retold the story of humanity in a cohesive narrative of redemption. We as a church are challenged to walk the same path of retelling our stories in the light of Jesus as stories of redemption and renewal. Let your efforts at exploring those paths build new bridges to reach new vistas of hope. Thank you. Kamsa Hamida.